the footprint we're living when it comes to hospice and caring for people.
Setting a new standard.
Exactly. This is how families and the patients, this is how you have to take care of them. So that spirit of excellence is something we keep preaching, and we're praying and hoping we uphold to that standard ourselves. We want to change the narrative of what hospice care is providing that genuine care and let those families feel it, see it, taste it, smell it. That will make a difference in what we do. So one patient and one family at a time. That's the way I say it.
Welcome to the Oasis on Life and Living, a podcast about what hospice is, what it can be, and the people reshaping how we care for one another in life's most vulnerable moments. I'm your host, Tasso, and today I'm honored to sit down with Hakeem Bello, the co-founder and CEO of Oasis Hospice and House of Goshen. Over the past 13 years, Hakeem and his wife, Sade, have built something remarkable here in the Chicago Southland. Not just a hospice agency, but a ministry, rooted in faith, compassion, and a relentless commitment to dignity. From a simple vision of a 4-bedroom care home to a fully operational 14-bedroom inpatient facility here in Flossmoor, Illinois. Their journey has been anything but ordinary. Today, we're going back to the beginning, to the dreams, the challenges, and the moments of faith that turned vision into reality. We'll talk about what it takes to build a culture of compassionate excellence, the pressures that face hospice care in 2026 and beyond, and what families really need to know when they hear the word hospice. Hakeem, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you, Tasso, for having me, and it's a pleasure to be the first on your podcast, and I hope this will continue and just grow to something really meaningful and just mess up my flow.
That was a good one too, man.
Okay, so are we going to just continue or what?
Let's start at the beginning. You and Sade didn't just dip your toes into this hospice care thing. You guys went all in. What made you decide to fully commit to this vision, knowing how challenging the work could be?
Just share our story. The inspiration really grew out of Sade's vision 13 years ago. The goal for her was to have like a 4-bedroom house where she can bring patients to care for them, in a more intimate setting. She had, I would say, almost 10 years experience with hospice and fell in love with hospice. And she said, when I retire, I just want to have a small house to where I can bring patients in and care for them, because in hospice, there are 4 different levels of care. And what she wanted to focus on was the general inpatient level of care where symptoms are managed, in the private setting, and also respite, which is for caregivers that needs rest, and bring them into a place like that. So that's where everything really started. But to have a house like that, you'd have to have a hospice agency. So I think after looking at everything, we decided, okay, let's register and start a hospice agency so that dream can be accomplished. I'll say another thing that truly inspired the House of Goshen was a vivid dream I had about the land we're standing on today. And I'm not a dreamer, but this was so vivid and real that I drove down to actually look at the land. It's a 2.24 acre land in Flossmoor. And in that dream, I saw the property not as an empty space because there was a farmland. But I didn't just see it as an empty space, but as a place already filled with purpose, a place of peace, a place of refuge, and just a place to where we can care for people in one of the most vulnerable seasons, of their lives. So when I woke up from that dream, that vision stayed with me, which I shared with Sade, and it didn't feel random. It felt directional. But when I shared that dream with her, she's like, you dreamt that we own a land in Flossmoor? And I'm like, yes. She's like, well, okay. I think you should dream again. But I'm like, well, this is so real. So it meant, it meant a lot. And at that time, we were already deep in the work with Oasis. But the dream really clarified something we hadn't fully named yet, because it's a process. Of course, we needed it to be like, a physical place, a house where families could come and feel covered, supported, a place of peace.
I wanted to take a quick moment to pause here and really lean into what Hakeem has just said. That he had a dream. And not just any dream, but a dream so clear that he envisaged what the future would become. And he brings his wife Sade in on it, and from their small hospice agency over a dozen years ago to now having built a 14-bedroom, state-of-the-art inpatient facility here in Flossmoor, Illinois, the dream has undoubtedly been a remarkable one. But I was also curious as to why they decided to name this new facility House of Goshen.
I think with the name, I remember it took us a while. We came up with all sort of weird names just to come to this, but we decided to just pray about it, and I think Sade came up with the name. And the name Goshen comes from a biblical land of Goshen in the book of Genesis. Goshen was a place of refuge, a place where God's people were protected, provided for, and cared for, even while hardship surrounded them in Egypt. So the meaning, when she came up with that, she's like, Goshen. The meaning really resonated deeply with us. In scriptures, while the rest of Egypt, like I said, experienced famine and suffering, Goshen was a place of covering, of peace, preservation. So it was a reminder that even in the midst of darkness, God makes room for safety, rest. He provides. And I think just thinking about hospice and end of life care, that really solidified the fact for us that, okay, this is exactly what we need, in this place, because especially people are struggling.
Hospice care has that negative connotation, but
exactly.
If you can reframe that as a place of rest, of peace, then that really changes the dynamics that people are approaching it with.
Yes, because that's like you said, that's what hospice is all about. Creating that same kind of refuge. People are sheltered, not just medically, but emotionally, spiritually, and psychologically. When families, when they come in here and they see their loved ones being cared for, it brings dignity and compassion in what we do. So it's really, while we care for people from all backgrounds and beliefs, the story of Goshen reminds us that this house exists to be a place of peace, protection, presence, especially in life's most vulnerable moments. So because of that name, a lot of people that haven't read the Bible before, they've actually gone to search, like, what is Goshen? So it's a testimony on its own. Exactly. This is a ministry for us. So I think in all sense, we're seeing it being one, because that name itself, people Google it. Sometimes I try to explain what it means, and people will tell me, oh, I Googled it and I know, So it is a form of just spreading the word.
Oh, that's beautiful. As stated previously, Oasis Hospice has been around now for 13 years. And in that time, there have undoubtedly been many ups and many downs. But I was also curious to know what exactly those ups and downs have yielded. What are the things that Hakeem and Sade are most proud of when they look back at the time that they have invested in this dream?
That's a tough one. It's been challenges, to be honest, but one of the most that I'll say I'm proud of is the culture we're building, what Oasis is known for on a consistent basis. And we're trying to build in House of Goshen as well. House of Goshen was built, a year and a half ago, and now we're fully operational. I will say for both agencies is the compassion that is so real, it can be felt, and it's consistent in terms of each family we take we take care of, what they're saying about what they're feeling. The compassion is real.
If you've been listening carefully, there are a few words that Hakeem continues to use over and over again. Words like compassion and dignity. To Hakeem and Sade, these aren't just buzzwords. These are real foundational values that drive the rest of what they do. And in what can be a cutthroat industry, maintaining these values is something that I really admire and respect. In our view, hospice isn't about the bottom line. It's about enfranchising families and caring for those who need it the most.
One thing, Sade always says, which we've adapted in Oasis, is having that spirit of excellence in everything we do. And I think for us is where excellence and humanity coexist, where people can truly show up for one another and really care for these families.
Where excellence and humanity coexist. Well, as we get into the second half of this conversation with Hakeem Bello, CEO and co-founder of Oasis Hospice and House of Goshen, I just wanted to reiterate that point and remind us that really that should be the goal no matter what we do.
I'm especially proud of our team as well. This work isn't easy, and yet, they choose every day to care deeply for patients and their families and for each other. I've watched nurses sit long after their shift just to help. We have a contract with the VA, so we take care of veterans as well, treating them with dignity. So this kind of care is not something you teach. It's something that comes from the heart. And I think having people with that compassion and care really be part of our team makes me proud. And truly, on a personal level, the journey have really tested our faith and refined our faith as well. Okay. There were seasons where we had to trust without clarity, but we just keep moving without guarantees. So looking back, I can say those moments shaped not just the organization, but who we are as leaders and as people in this agency.
Now, if you know Hakeem, you'll also know that he's an incredibly humble individual. So let me quickly speak for him. This is somebody who just last year won an award as a top business leader in the entire Chicago Southland area for his consistent and visionary leadership style. He's somebody who leads not just by word, but by action, and is consistently seen as a beacon in the local community. So, given that he dreamed up what we are currently witnessing with House of Goshen, I wanted to get a sense of what his vision is for the future. As we move into 2026 and beyond, new challenges and new opportunities present themselves, and I'm curious as to how he'll plan to navigate them.
Really, as we step into 2026, there are a lot of things emerging that is good and also concerning. Hospice care is facing a real challenge, and one of the biggest challenges is balancing quality with sustainability. We have a lot of private equity trying to buy hospice agencies because for them it's business. Every week we get a call, if we want to sell, and I take my time to ask them what they're all about, and they're private equity just looking to make, just to make money, and that really hurts me. And that's one of the biggest things right now out there. Companies with money just buying up hospice agencies and rebrand it, resell it, or do whatever they want to do with it. There's no care in caring. So, but the other huge one is staffing. Staffing continues to be a concern just all over healthcare. Even since COVID, it's been a problem. It's not just about filling positions, but it's about finding people who are really emotionally and spiritually prepared for this work. Hospice, like somebody says, isn't transactional healthcare. It requires, presence. It requires patience. It requires compassion, and the burnout is a very real risk, across the industry. So every day that is still an issue. So those are the things that, for me, I feel are the challenges. But the other part of that, in terms of things I'm excited about, is what Oasis and House of Goshen is doing, what the footprint we're living when it comes to hospice and caring for people.
Setting a new standard.
Exactly. This is how families and the patients, this is how you have to take care of them. So that spirit of excellence is something we keep preaching, and we're praying and hoping we uphold to that standard ourselves, and just accountability, holding people accountable. So we want to change the narrative of what hospice care is providing that genuine care, and let those families feel it, see it, taste it, smell it. That will make a difference in what we do. So one patient and one family at a time. That's the way I say it.
And apparently they are doing an incredible job. Right now, as I record this, if you hop on google.com and look up Oasis Hospice, they sit at 4.8 out of 5 stars, with over 50 families all attesting to the incredible work that is being done at Oasis and House of Goshen. Or if you go to the hospice comparison tools on the Medicare.gov website, they sit near the top, with a perfect 5 out of 5 star rating. This is a place where excellence is truly the standard. And not just for physical well-being, but for the emotional and spiritual components of wellness as well. Here at Oasis, we treat the entire person. Now, as we come to the end of this conversation, I wanted to ask Hakeem one final question. That being, whether a son or a daughter or a grandchild, what hospice is. For someone who is perhaps nervous or curious or even fearful of that word. Maybe somebody who is looking at their options and simply wants a bit more clarity. How would you frame hospice care to that individual?
I think with that, I'll take a step back. Usually most families hear about hospice when their loved ones is faced with a terminal disease. Usually when they go to the hospital and the doctor comes out and says, we've done all the tests, and dad, mom, grandpa has stage 4 cancer and there's nothing we can do. Then they're like, you need hospice. And a lot of times they're like, what is that? So a lot of times people associate hospice with death. So you have all this negative vibe regarding with that, instead of trying to have an understanding. And unfortunately, the doctors don't do a great job explaining, because when you go to medical school, it's all about curative. You want to cure. Now you have to go explain to someone that their loved ones has 6 months or less to live. That is tough on anyone. That's why for us at Oasis, we feel we're the experts when it comes to educating our community, educating our providers. But the one thing I would tell families, if I have that opportunity, is hospice is not about giving up. It's about choosing comfort, dignity. One of the biggest myths when it comes to hospice is the end is immediate, or that care stops. But in reality, hospice is active. Hospice is intentional care. It's pain management, emotional and spiritual support. And you have a team working alongside both the patient and the families. Many people actually live better and sometimes longer when their symptoms are properly managed and their stress is reduced.
That was the case with the former U.S. President, Jimmy Carter. As a quick
Yes.
aside and a final bit of clarification as we close this talk, when you're placed on hospice, it usually means you have 6 months or less to live, as according to a doctor's prognosis. But this isn't always the case. As we were just speaking on, the former U.S. President Jimmy Carter was placed on hospice care and proceeded to live for over a year and a half. This is more than 3 times the length that the doctors predicted. And that just goes to show that even though we don't focus on curative measures, sometimes simply taking away the stress and pain from a person's plate can extend their lives and allow them to spend those moments more intentionally with their loved ones. Ultimately, we believe that hospice is not about mitigating death. Rather, it's about celebrating life.
Yeah, hospice doesn't take away hope. It reframes it. Hope shifts from cure to comfort, from more treatments to more meaningful moments. And those moments matter deeply to families. But here at Oasis, families aren't just a checkbox in a care plan. They're part of our care team. We take time, we listen, we personalize care because every story is different. Whether care happens to be at home or House of Goshen or in a facility or in a nursing home, our goal is the same: to make sure no one feels abandoned or alone. What I want families to know is this: choosing hospice early is one of the best decisions you can make. It gives space for connection, dignity. But at Oasis Hospice, we walk the journey with everyone that comes in our path, and so it's a beautiful thing.
A beautiful thing indeed. And as somebody who is more a fly on the wall, working on digital marketing campaigns and taking photographs around the office, it is always great to get back to the heart of the matter. And the heart is something that Hakeem and Sade take very seriously. To them, hospice isn't just a side project or a way to big up their bank accounts. This is truly a ministry. And so I wanted to end this conversation by saying a big thank you to Hakeem and to Sade for the sacrifices they make in allowing this work to be possible, and also for making time for this conversation today. Hopefully you guys begin to also see the heart and understand that hospice doesn't have to be a scary word. And again, as we said before, it's not about death, it's about life, and finding that partner who will allow your loved one to transition with dignity and with comfort. Thanks again to Hakeem Bello for allowing us the time to have this very important talk.
Thank you, Toso. I appreciate the time, and we'll talk some more.
All right. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Oasis on Life and Living, a podcast production by Oasis Hospice and House of Goshen, hosted by yours truly. Today's guest was Hakeem Bello, CEO and co-founder. Next episode, we'll be chatting with some other members of our team about what it means to serve in hospice, not as a career, but as a calling. Thank you once again for taking the time to listen all the way through. And if you are still here, please leave a like or subscribe wherever you find your podcasts, as it definitely helps us spread the word. Until next time, stay safe and be well.